Friday night. This is my new moon soundscape. My name is Jane. If I haven't met you before, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. It's really amazing how over the course of the life of these sessions we've started to get loads of people coming in from all over the country and all over the world. We've had people coming in from Mexico, from France, from Spain, from California. And it's really exciting that this lockdown has presented an opportunity to share with you guys online in a way that I never thought was possible. And when all of this first started, I thought I just would be sat on my butt here in Cornwall for a few months, being a housewife of some sort, just waiting for things to change. So it's unbelievably amazing that we've managed to not only bring these sessions online, but also expand from just the sound and the gong baths, which of course is where my focus lies, into the rest of the work, which is the stuff I really love to share with you in person. But I did really wonder how it was going to work online, and it's been amazing to get your feedback, to feel things evolving and changing, and to get everybody involved. So welcome. I think most of us are here now. There's up to 40 people registered, but a lot of people do listen back later. So the good thing about this platform is if you don't get too disrupted, if people jump in and out, if you do need to leave early, if you have a crying baby, if something bad happens, hopefully not, but if you need to leave, please don't worry. This session is made available to all of you who've registered in full. I mean, I edit off this bit of me chatting at the beginning usually, but it's available in full for you to listen back to whenever you like. So particularly if you don't have all your ritual stuff set up, or if you're seeing it for the first time and then you really want to experience this with the ritual side of it as well, then you're really welcome to play it back whenever suits you. So first of all, so I guess welcome. Gemini new moon. So the new moon was pretty much an hour ago. It was 54 minutes ago, 6:39 this evening here in the UK, and it's a funny one, Gemini new moon. I'm not going to lie, Gemini's not my favourite sign, and I could say this because I know my mum's going to listen later, and she's a Gemini. But it's a real sign of polarity, as anyone who is a Gemini or has a lot of that energy in their chart or in the chart of people close to them will understand. We're going to talk a bit more about the astrology of Gemini in a moment, but I guess to start with, I wanted to just talk about the idea of new moons and the idea that a new moon is the beginning of a cycle. We're in the dark phase. We can't see the moon. It's there, but invisible. And this is really an invitation to move into our shadow work, into our shadow side, and to spend time really placing roots into the ground and seeds, and looking at the cycle ahead, looking at what we want to achieve, what's coming up next for us, a little bit about what we're releasing and leaving behind, though that's a little bit more full moony in its energy, and really it's an opportunity to just take stock of where we are. And one of the things I love so much about working with the moon, working with shamanism, with Wicca, with natural energies and energetic science, is that I think nature and the certainty of the cycles, the certainty of this 29.5-day lunar cycle is just really comforting. I find it so supportive, particularly in these really uncertain times, knowing that the moon is just going to keep showing itself in certain ways at certain times. I find so reassuring. And on a personal level, I find that the moon is such a great way to chart our course through life, to navigate our circumstances. And it gives us an opportunity over the course of the year to visit all the different houses, all the different aspects of our personality, of our character, represented by all the different signs and the different lunar phases, and allows us to explore them and see where we stand in each of those different areas of life. So I know some of you will have your rock and ritual boxes, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for those of you that do. Rock and Ritual is a side project I had been working on quietly for a few months, and then the impact of the pandemic encouraged me to get it going perhaps a little quicker than I was going to. But it's been an amazing project to have so many of you join from different parts of the country and the world by purchasing a box that brings you into the room and brings you into this space and allows you to connect with all the stuff I'm doing here in my little sound space, my gong room, formerly known as the spare room here in Cornwall. So I'm just going to check in with the messages because I can see lots of you on here. Lots of hellos. So hi Hannah, hi Sarah, Jackie, Kerry and Beth, welcome. I'm going to put my notes over here. I've got so much to talk about today, and I always get myself off track if I let myself ramble too much, so we'll save you too much of that. So We're going to begin today with a little bit of chat about the Gemini moon, the nature of this particular moon. Gemini is a tricky sign. It's an air sign. And it's a really dynamic, creative, kind of flourishing energy. Gemini is very much characterized by activity and movement and restlessness. There's not a lot of standstill, and anyone that connects with Gemini energy will probably be aware of how restless it can be, how chatty, how kind of effervescent is a nice way of phrasing it. But it can also be really scattered, quite non-committal. It can be an energy that's really quite disruptive, maybe even careless and very anxious. So it's something I think all of us can tap into at this time. And I wrote in my newsletter today that I found, for me, this time of year is so beautiful. We have these amazing long kind of peachy sunsets. We have just beautiful flowers beginning to come up and show themselves. I've had the first roses in my garden this week, and that's always a really special time of year. And yet we have this kind of unease that, suddenly the clouds can roll in. It can change at any time. May could be summer, it could still be winter. Are we in flip-flops? Are we in jumpers? Like, no one really knows. And I think Gemini season really encapsulates that unease and that kind of uncertainty. And at the moment, we're in a particular aspect of uncertainty in the Gemini season because we're working with so many planets in retrograde. So anyone that follows cosmology or astrology or my blog or newsletters, anyone else's in the industry will know that we have Saturn, Jupiter, Venus and Pluto all in retrograde right now. And in a couple of weeks, Mercury is going to join them. And I'm sure everyone knows something about Mercury retrograde, that it tends to be disruptive and disconnecting and quite unnerving. And having all those other planets in reverse as well just is quite a lot of reverse energy in the cosmos, in the heavens. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. What that does is allow us to pause and to take stock and look at where we are and just have a think about how we want to move forward. What are we leaving behind in that kind of negative reverse energy, and what are we taking forward? And I think having all of these signs retrograde at the same time is very representative of where we are as a nation, as of the world, sociologically, politically. Everything's just kind of on pause, which is kind of amazing. It gives us so much opportunity to review and to figure out where we are and what we're going to do next. So Gemini astrologically is the sign of the twins. The twins are called Castor and Pollux. So if you look up in the night sky, I'm trying to orient myself. They're in the west at the moment. So if you happen to be like me in Cornwall and you look out west across the Atlantic, you'll see them kind of just above the horizon line. Probably about 11 o'clock this evening is a good time to see them if it's clear. And the twins represent, one twin is heavenly and one is spiritual. So one is mortal, one is immortal. They represent this kind of balance between our earthly kind of grounded physical self and our kind of spiritual, esoteric, intuitive self. And the merging of the kind of the wisdom of these two parts, this sort of heavenly and earthly self, is what Gemini represents. And in a way, that's how I feel this kind of restless, airy kind of vibe emerges, because there's this constant push and pull between grounded, rooted kind of material awareness and then really spiritual, esoteric, kind of ditzy, almost carelessness. So in some ways, it's not that different to the Taurian energy we were talking about 4 weeks ago. But Taurus is an earth sign, so the natural kind of gravitational pull is back to the ground, whereas Gemini's air kind of spins everything out and sends it off into the cosmos, making it a bit kind of chaotic and a bit kind of kooky. So big themes for Gemini. Communication. Probably most of you are very aware that Mercury is Gemini's ruler, and the planet Mercury is the planet of communication. And as I just mentioned, Mercury is about to go backwards. So communication is the big theme. It's as much kind of our social communication as well as our inward communication, but it's worth seeing that word from both perspectives as we move through Gemini energy. Gemini is really inviting kind of new paradigms in how we communicate, and that's really consistent with where we are as people, as a race, as a species at the moment. And I think as we all navigate this kind of new way of being and this new aspect of living on this planet, that kind of new way of communicating, just like we're doing right now, communicating here in this kind of cybernetic world is really exciting. And we don't have to restrict that just to how we communicate for events and for restructured and reimagined festivals and theatre. We can think about how we communicate with ourselves differently as well. And that I think is so, so important as we move into this new phase and the old stuff comes crumbling down and new ways of living begin to emerge from the ashes of this whole surreal phase that we're in. So some questions. How are you communicating now? I've been working a lot with tarot this week. The spreads that I tend to work with are quite short and small. I try to keep them really manageable. I will show you the spread I'm working on at the moment. And I'm going to post this afterwards to my Instagram, probably over the weekend. So if you guys want to look it up, you can follow on and do your own reading. I just laid my grid out real nice, and now I need to put him down and probably I'll knock him everywhere. So I'm working today with the Moonchild Tarot, which is this really beautiful tarot deck. Available from many retailers. Give me a shout if you want to know where I recommend. And the card that is consistent with the Gemini, or symbolic of the Gemini sign, is the Lovers, which is really beautiful. And in the Moonchild Tarot, the Lovers is just this really kind of simple silhouetted couple in the heavens, which I just love. So the Lovers is a really nice card to get when you're reading for yourself or someone else, but it's also, of course, emblematic of that heaven and earth kind of dichotomy that I mentioned. It's really relevant in terms of your inner self and your external self, how you see yourself and how others see you. So this kind of dual way of thinking is something I want you guys to be thinking about throughout this session and beyond, through your Gemini season. So I'm just going to try, this usually goes wrong, so bear with me, to slightly re-angle my screen. So you'll probably end up half looking down my top. Hi. So this is my Lover's card. Let's move this here. There we go. Okay. So the spread I'm working on is using this as your symbol card. So always holding your symbol card when you're shuffling your deck, when you're bringing your intention into your reading. I've already shuffled my deck. I thought it was too messy to try and do everything down low when I'm leaning into you like this. But shuffling your deck, whichever way you choose, old school shuffle, flip shuffle, I always like to divide it to 3 and reset the deck before choosing. And then really holding the deck. If you haven't got a smudge tool, maybe just investing your energy or intention into the deck. If you have got a smudge tool, it's quite nice to pass the deck through some white sage, some Palo Santo, or spritz some Florida water around, and that will just help to cleanse the deck of any previous readings and any previous messages it needs to share with you. I'm just going to tip this up a bit because it's a bit crazy. So the first card I'm pulling is going to sit north of the Lovers, and this card is where has my communication been cluttered or unclear? So this is to really ask the question about where we can do better with our communication skills. As I said, we have this opportunity of moving through Gemini season in a forward motion and then having Mercury pausing, going backwards at the end. So we have a real chance to look at both sides of the coin, which is what Gemini is all about. So where's my communication being cluttered or unclear? Second card, what impact has this approach to communication had on my progress or my intentions? So what impact has this approach to communication had on my progress or intentions? Your third card, which I'm slightly running out of room, but it's in front of the Lovers down the bottom there, is what impact has this communication had on my relationships? And you can read this as your inner relationship with yourself, your most important relationship, or your relationship with others. Maybe there's a particular person, or a business relationship, a partnership, husband, wife, partner, sibling, child, that you need to bring your focus onto. And this card is an opportunity to shine a light into this area of communication. And your final card, you always want to close a reading with a card which is about where this is going, what messages do you need to learn. So the final card is what can give me clarity in the chaos? What can give me clarity in this communication chaos moving forward? So this spread, I'm going to do a full reading of it after this session. I'll post it online and invite you all to have a look and let me know what you think, to draw your own reading as well. But it's really nice, I find, to work with the tarot on the day of the new moon, or maybe the day after, and just see how the energy changes over the course of those few days. I'm just going to tip you guys up so I'm not leaning quite so extremely. There we go, that's better. I can reorganise my top. Okay, so where's my communication being cluttered or unclear? And I've pulled the Hierophant, which is for the card we actually work with extensively during Taurus season. What impact has this had on my progress? Ten of Swords. And Swords is a real, Swords is the air suite, so it's really kind of a card of attack. I've pulled this card quite a lot lately. It's quite an interesting one. It kind of looks a bit like the Game of Thrones but is that actually a card that's really about psychic attack. It's about self-destruction and the damage we do ourselves. So I probably didn't need to even read that to know that my challenges in the world of communication have been serving only to be self-destructive. What impact has my communication had on my relationships? I've pulled Death. It's kind of alarming. I'm putting all the cards I've had most recently from this deck. It's interesting. I shuffled it so well as well. And this card is a real Scorpionic card. We met it in the Scorpio full moon a few weeks ago. And it's a card about transformation and rebirth. So I'm really happy to get that card. Actually, people tend to be a bit freaked out when they pull it. But the Death card is really a card which is about rebirth, about regeneration. And I know that I've made a lot of big changes to my personal approach to business and to communication, how I show myself to the world lately. So I'm really happy with that card. And finally, how do I move forward? How do I look at my communication to make progress? The Ace of Cups. Such a nice, speedy reading. I love it. The Ace of Cups is the opening card of the Water Suite. And as you can see, it's full of rainbows and flowers. It's a really beautiful card. And it's a card which is about beginnings of new emotions, beginnings of changing the record, changing how you approach life, how you approach your emotional responses to the world around you. So for me, this is a really nice reading, which is simply about staying true to the path I find myself on. And this is a reading I'm doing kind of partly for me and partly for the group tonight. So I will post a bit of detail about that on my site later on and on the Instagram. And if you're working with cards yourself, I invite you to take a moment to just pull a couple of cards around the theme of communication. Maybe let me know what you've pulled, what interests you. If you have any questions about which cards you've pulled and why. I will just move these out of the way and bring my ritual tray back up so we can have a look at it together. Every chance I'm going to knock this over several times tonight, so hopefully you get to see it before anything bad happens. Okay. So, on the subject of ritual, what is a ritual? I find that a ritual is, for me, it's a really amazing way to connect kind of symbolically to your higher self. It's an opportunity to amplify your intuition using tools that connect you to the elements, that connect you to different aspects of your energetic body, of your auric field, stuff that we kind of know is there, especially if you're here, if you're already in this work, if you're in this place. You're probably really aware of chakras, of energy fields, of what they can do and how you can tap into them to advance your own journey. But these tools in ritual really help us, I think, to accelerate and amplify that experience. The opportunity really in working with spiritual tools, particularly in the shamanic field, and the Wiccan field, is to kind of co-create your journey with support from guides, with support from each other. And even in this cyberspace, it's really great when we are able to share the space and hold the space together and feel each other's energy. And I love that with the group we have on tonight, everybody is in their space, whether here in Cornwall or in London, in Bristol, in New York, in many different places, and you can all feel each other's energy sitting here with this same work this evening, and that's really exciting. It's rituals an opportunity to bring forth ideas and inspiration, visions, to really kind of crystallize your vision of where you're going, what you want to achieve in this particular cycle, what you're manifesting, and particularly for new moons, manifesting is the energy that we're working with. And I think it really helps us to examine where we are in our lives. I find that, as I mentioned early on, working with the cycles of the lunar houses, with the cosmic houses, with the shamanic wheel really help me to just assess different aspects of my life in turn, put them under the microscope, look at patterns, look at stuff that maybe needs a bit of readjustment or refinement to serve me better and to help me be further on my path and more of what I'm here to be doing. So hopefully I hope you find that to be the same, a kind of magic carpet ride through all the different aspects of your personality over the course of a year. So let's get down into the ritual and have a look at what we've got on the table tonight. I'm just going to readjust myself slightly. I'm wondering if I might put you guys up a little higher so you can see this. This might disrupt the sound a bit. I hope not. Okay, hi. So hopefully, if I get down really low again, what you guys can see here is my my little ritual table for tonight. And as you can see, it's on a mirror, so you're getting a particularly weird view under my chin, which I apologise for. What we have got here is a series of different tools which I feel really support the Gemini energy. And those of you that have your boxes will have some of these with you. Obviously, you're always welcome to work with any crystals, oils, or other tools that suit your needs. I just tend to supply you examples of what might particularly tap into and harness the energy of the prevailing cosmic mood. But of course, you can always use whatever suits you. And I often find that I have a few crystals, oils, rocks which work really well with the season, and a few that simply work for me with where I'm at. Like I will nearly always use black tourmaline, labradorite somewhere, and I've got tourmaline today in my candle, even though it's nothing to do with Gemini season. It's just the rock that I feel particularly supports me and is particularly protective to my journey. So if you've got anything out that you would like to bring into your space, now is a good time to set it up if you haven't already. And we'll begin by clearing the space using whatever clearing tools work for you. So pop this up a bit so I can see you again. So I like to use a mixture of white sage, Palo Santo, or a clearing spray. This is a spray I made earlier. This is a mixture of frankincense, Palo Santo, rose, and I've got some Herkimer diamond, which is the clearest, most beautiful quartz you can possibly get, that's in there as well. And that really, I think, adds an extra bit of clarity to the cleanse. A spritz is a really nice, easy way of clearing. Obviously, if you do like to work with sage, it's nice to pass your crystals through the sage rather than just to waft them. So without setting fire to anything too much, I'm going to do that now. I do have a record of setting the smoke alarm off in my house when I'm doing these events, so you'll have to bear with me. Okay. So I like to use a loose leaf sage. I find that it just burns nicer, and those smudge sticks, you know, they're a good place to start, but if I ever get given a smudge stick, I always break it up. I don't really like to use it as a stick. It's not really how smudge is intended to work, and it's not really how sage traditionally works either. So I'll usually create a little waft of smoke. You can hopefully just about see that. And then one by one, pass my crystals through the sage. And as you're passing them through, it's really important not just to watch the sage kind of cling to the surface of the crystal, but to really send your intention into cleansing it. Let the crystal know that its previous work is done and it's ready to be activated and programmed with today's energy. So obviously I'm not going to do this with my whole extensive grid here, but if you have just one or two crystals you're working with tonight, then I invite you to give that a spin and start getting them cleansed and ready for use. So we're going to always work with fire in ritual, because fire is the most transformative and cleansing of all the elements. So again, if you're either outside, as I know some of you are, or working with heat-proof dishes, ceramic or stainless steel is a good call. It's nice to have your sage in a dish such as that. I tend to use my big shell. Most shells are not going to be heat sensitive. This is super, super thick and really big. Shells on the beach, I've tried it and set fire to my kitchen worktop, so please don't do that. But you can use anything that suits you to get your fire going. I actually tend to use just a stainless steel dish from the kitchen. And when I'm writing out my intentions, I'll burn them into that dish just so I'm not distracted during meditation by a fire that I don't want to have going up in my room. So let's get to intentions. Intentions is what really magnifies and drives your whole ritual. Without an intention, it's just I know, not just a meditation, but without an intention, you're not really working with energy. So hopefully you've got something to write on. Your intention is always more powerful when expressed in the written word. And I would love you all to start by taking a moment or two just to scribble down whatever comes to mind. It doesn't have to be particularly well written or thought-provoking. Just what is it that you want to work with in your sound journey tonight, in your meditation? What's this new moon bringing for you? What are you manifesting? What seeds are you sowing? And by writing that down, you can hopefully start to breathe some life into it. It's really nice to start breathing really deeply in and out as you write your intention, really connecting with it, really kind of breathing life into it as though you're resuscitating it, actually giving it birth. The new moon is a real time of fertility and creativity in all senses. So really, enjoy birthing these ideas, these intentions. And if you do work with guides, now's a really good time as well to invoke any guides or spirits or energies that you like to work with. It can be from this realm or another realm. Maybe if you're shamanically trained, you have an animal or a particular plant spirit. If you are into Wicca, there'll be different kinds of guides you talk to, or maybe it's a person that's either in this world or has already passed over, or a pet, or a soul, a spirit that you connect with that you just feel supportive energy from. So just take a moment to write down your intention, to decide what comes naturally. Don't give it too much thought. We'll talk more about intentions in just a moment. I'm going to put you guys back down here while you're doing your intentions. Just turn you up a little bit. I so need a camera. I'm really desperate to get a new camera. It's on my list for next week. That's what I've been manifesting this last month, is a webcam and some lights. So hopefully this will be the last session we do where it's a little bit shadowy and not quite as slick as I would like it to be. I'm just checking that you guys are all on here. Okay. Awesome. So hopefully while you're just scribbling down your intentions, I'm just going to read you a very brief couple of words from my shaman, whose name is Rebecca. And she sends a really awesome newsletter out every moon called her Lunarscope. And if you receive my newsletter, you'll have received a link to her website in today's mail out. And if you'd like it, then just let me know. She's super, super interesting. Like me, she's a North Londoner and was called to Peru and spent several years living, this girl from North London just randomly in Peru, living with a shamanic tribe in the Amazon, which is where she did her apprenticeship. And she always has such wisdom to share. So today she emailed me, "Don't be shy to communicate your ideas and visions with people who inspire and support you. The more open and vulnerable we are and share what's really in our hearts, the broader our horizons become." I'm going to read that again. Don't be shy to communicate your ideas and visions with people who inspire and support you. The more open and vulnerable we are and share what's really in our hearts, the broader our horizons. Isn't that awesome? And I like the idea of vulnerability. This Gemini season is so airy and restless and challenging in lots of ways, and actually being vulnerable is something most of us shy away from. But I think this season we're in, this kind of changes with the pandemic, the lockdown, the pauses, the reflection we're all in, is really inviting more awareness of vulnerability and more acceptance of that. So that really resonated for me when I read that this morning. The idea of sharing and communicating more, using this Mercury, Gemini energy to communicate more, to make things happen. And that's something I really wanted to share with all of you guys tonight. So I know we need to get into the sound. I always get super carried away with my chatty stuff at the beginning, and it is something I love to share, and I think it's what sets these sessions apart. But I hope you don't mind me talking at you too much. It's obviously a lot easier when we can be in the room together and when you guys can all chip in. And please do feel free to use the chat if you have questions or comments or want to add anything into this portion of the session. We'll be another few minutes just running through the crystals and oils, and then we're going to get into some sound and meditation for about an hour or so. So crystals for Gemini season. Again, those of you that have received your boxes, and I give you my thanks, we'll have lots of these in front of you. The main crystal that I'm working with for Gemini, as are lots of my peers, is amazing citrine. And I have the most beautiful example of it right here. This is my absolute favourite crystal that I own. I bought this in the Himalayas. I realize I'm showing you this with my finger. I managed to cut my hand on a baked bean tin this morning. Very glamorous. I was told I should say that I'm cut it on a jackfruit tin, but it was baked beans. So as you can see, this citrine is just absolutely mega. You can see in the palm of my hand how big he is. He's just super magical. And citrine is one of the only crystals you don't need to cleanse. It is self-cleansing. It is the stone of abundance. So it's a really awesome crystal to work with if you're looking to invite abundance of any sort into your life. Traditionally, it was carried in kind of pockets and in bras, actually, to invite in money. But it's really seen as a crystal and rock that works for abundance of all kinds, not just the monetary type. It's a sun crystal. It harnesses the power of the sun. And as we move towards solstice, which of course is actually 4 weeks from today, anything harnessing the power of the sun is going to be super amplified, because we're in a season where we're seeing so much more solar energy. So do make use of citrine as much as you can at the moment. Pure raw blocks of citrine like this are really quite hard to come by now, particularly in the UK. They're pretty expensive. If we're ever allowed to travel again, I urge you to buy them in places like India. This is another little point, also raw citrine. You can see it's quite light. Lighter citrines are said to rule the physical body and darker the spiritual body. This is a darker citrine tip, and I encourage you to be aware of too many darker citrines. They're often just heat treated amethyst, and you can usually tell because they have a slightly plasticky sheen to them. You know, like if you leave something plastic on the hob when it's turned on, and you get that kind of weird blistered effect. So look out for that when you're searching out your crystals. So citrine is really encourages working with this kind of dual nature of Gemini. It really encourages this creativity, abundance, getting in flow with yourself, and hearing your own inner messages, which is something, again, this theme of communication that's overarching tonight and the next 2 weeks is something I really want to encourage you all to do. Tiger's Eye is the other stone that's really quite prevalent at the moment. This is quite a small piece. Those of you with the delivered boxes will have absolute paperweights. I could not believe the size of the pieces that I was finding for you. So Tiger's Eye is really interesting. It's mostly found in South Africa, and it's a stone which is very, very emblematic of Gemini, because it really supports this kind of binary heaven and earth mentality. It basically helps us to take this kind of spiritual, airy kind of restlessness and ground it and pull it down and give it some roots. So it's a stone that's really, really anchoring. It's really good for self-confidence, for self-worth. It's useful if you're super spaced out or struggling with commitment. It's really kind of good at supporting all of those aspects and energies. The other stone that I've got loads of here tonight is moonstone, and I'm going to show you. It comes in a whole bunch of different colours. I've got quite a few different ones here. This kind of grey moony colour is the one I like the best, and that's what I've used most of tonight. There are a few others available. And moonstone is such a pretty stone. It's kind of quite opalescent. Opal is traditionally the birthstone of Gemini, but that's, you know, kind of esoteria rather than something we'd work with in crystal therapy. And moonstone is kind of the counterpart to the citrine. Citrine is obviously a sunstone. Moonstone does what it says on the tin and harnesses lunar energy. It's the stone of the goddess, and it is really powerful over new moons, particularly, and the waxing moon. It's less powerful when the moon goes beyond full. So it's a great stone for the first half of the lunar cycle. It's a stone of new beginnings, which is what makes it so awesome for the new moon. And it's also really relevant for the solar plexus chakra. So I encourage you to meditate with it kind of in the center of your body. And the idea is you've got this kind of lunar energy balancing out the sun, which is in the center of the body. For those of you that work with oils, the oils I'm using, I've left over here, are lots of lavender. I had a lavender bath earlier, and tons of lavender is so awesome for Gemini, because Gemini needs calming down. If you have those Gemini people in your life, that's probably really familiar. But lavender, that calming aspect, is super useful. Eucalyptus is also a really good Gemini scent because eucalyptus is obviously fantastic for the respiratory system. Gemini physically rules over the lungs, the respiratory system, the arms and the hands. I've also used rose just because for me, like I mentioned, the roses in the garden, roses feel like this Gemini season is really connected to that particular flower, that plant. I find that rose petals usually come into my grids quite a lot at this time of year. I haven't actually used any tonight. I will do on the eclipse, but because we're working with the mirror tonight, which is a real symbol of Gemini, I didn't want to cover the surface too much. It's still really important to have that mirror has two faces kind of story for me in this ritual. I'm also using bergamot, which is a real kind of citrusy, earthy kind of sharp scent, which I really like in terms of that grounding connective energy, and geranium, which is another calming nervous system soother. So this is a really great mix to put in a bath, to put in a incense burner, to make a little spray out of, and I like to use them before all sound sessions, as most of you know, across my pulse points, under the jaw, behind the ears, down the décolletage, and just in general to give yourself a real kind of physical, kind of sensory connection to the season. They're also really useful at the end of your sound to help bring you back. If you're feeling quite spaced out, I'd suggest you dab your finger and just take this under the jaw, just to kind of help get your senses functioning again once you've been to a deep place. So I'm conscious of time. We'll just get our ceremony up and running and then we'll get into the sounds. Oh, I forgot to mention lapis lazuli. This huge, enormous piece right down the front here. Lapis is not always considered a very Gemini stone. This one's got loads of pyrite in it as well. It's just such an amazing colour. One of the most amazing natural coloured stones. I've got another little dinky piece of it here as well. And actually I brought my lapis globe. I don't usually go in for polished stones. I like a rough stone, but this is just one of my favourites. It's so mega. So lapis is one of the best stones for the throat chakra, Vishuddha, the fifth chakra. It's also great for the respiratory system, but the reason I picked lapis is that it's a real communication stone. It's Mercury stone. And for this season, when the big theme is communication, how are we talking to ourselves, how are we talking to others, this is the stone that I wanted to use to really harness that power of communication here in the Vishuddha chakra. It really also helps you approach the values of kind of active listening, as well as just talking. Just something I feel like I'm doing loads of tonight. So if you're working with your own ritual and you haven't already lit your candle, please do so now. I'm working, as I said, with a candle I've selected because it's got some black tourmaline in it. I made it and I like to put crystals in all the candles that I make. I find that really amplifies the energy and amplifies their ritual use. So these candles with the stones are not necessarily intended to burn all night in the living room or in the bedroom, although I do like doing that. They're intended for use in ritual. So the protective aspects of black tourmaline are burning out through this light as well. So once you've cast your circle or your grid, whichever way you prefer to work, if you have got a mirror, you could either put your grid or your circle onto the mirror or just have the mirror next to you or somewhere in front of you where you can see into it. As I said, the mirror is a real symbol of Gemini. We've all heard the phrase, the mirror has two faces, this duality of heaven and earth, of our inner and external communications, ways of seeing the world, is something I'd love for you all to bring into your meditation this evening. So, taking your candle in your hand and just casting your gaze down into the flame, really looking into the core of the flame, the colourless part, seeing the centre of it. Have your intention in your mind. If an affirmation or a mantra works better for you, then you can bring that to mind. And as you hold your candle, really charge it with your energy. Attune yourself to what it is you want to manifest. Really visualize it. See yourself experiencing what it is you're intending. If you're in a safe space to do so and you have a fireproof bowl, it can be really nice at this stage to burn your intention, to just take the edge of it into your candle and then let it burn down into the heatproof bowl. If you don't have a heatproof place, please don't do that. You can do that later. Go and just take a match to it in the garden and let all the pieces fall back into the earth. And take the moment, if you're working with a mirror, to really look into the mirror. And don't see yourself as you are now. See yourself as you're going to be at the other end of this lunar cycle. See yourself as you want to be once your current visions and ideas about yourself have manifested. Work with the present tense. Say, I am. I am more confident and comfortable in my workplace. I am more confident in expressing my truth authentically and honestly. I am ready to step into the next phase of my relationship. Look into the mirror and really see it. The mirror is there to help you see the other face, the other side, both sides of the coin, the other twin's perspective. I quite like to keep my candle lit throughout the sound, and then we'll extinguish the candle at the end, but it's up to you. Please be mindful of your space, mindful of the area you're working in. We're going to begin tonight with a little hang drum. And this is a really beautiful, amazing little piece. This cosmic little drum has the power, I think, just to carry you completely out of the realm that you're in. I hope you find it to be a luscious, sweet, magic carpet ride. That's exactly how I feel about it. So it's a good time to get your headphones on if you haven't already. Make yourself comfortable, maybe settle yourself down under a blanket. Your body temperature will drop a few degrees in meditation, and even though we're not in the same room, the sounds, the frequencies can be really profound, and they will almost certainly take you into a completely different dimensional realm. Your journey is always powered by your own intention, so you can decide if and where you want to go, if you feel the sound should be healing or meditative or relaxing. Using your ritual circle, your grid if you're working with one, to set your intention, to hold it close. And as we work with Gemini energy, I think a really nice energy to call in is that of birds, of air. We've all noticed how much more birdsong we can hear in this new, less polluted world. And birds are in lots of ways the ultimate expression of air, the Gemini element. So perhaps listening out to see if you can hear any birds right now in your space where you are. Encompassing that kind of flighty, changeable energy, the ability to change, the ability to communicate over great distance, the ability to communicate inwards through vibration. And start to take a couple of really deep breaths, breathing in and out through the nose, breathing deep into the belly, breathing deep into your being. Give thanks to any guides, any spirits that you're welcoming into your journey this evening. We'll see each other on the other side. Softly now, becoming aware of the bird song. Bird song all around you, within you, that aspect of nature, of air, of flight. Becoming aware of the air rushing past you, past your face, past your wings. Becoming aware of the breath as it passes through your lips and through your nose. Feeling yourself floating, diving through the sky, through faraway blue. Gradually, as you begin to surface from your journey, becoming aware of the breath in your body, the heart in the body, your fingers, your toes. Any small movements coming now into your neck, your spine. Maybe in the space between your eyebrows, sensing any colours, any tingling, any energy, any messages, insights, intuitions. Perhaps just as you begin to fully surface, visualising a mirror. Maybe it's the mirror in the room with you now, or it's one just in your imagination. Visualising a mirror and looking into the mirror, seeing yourself, your future self. Embodying your intention, your vision, your dreams, your future. Taking a moment to thank your future self for his or her insights and guidance, thanking your guides, your navigators on your journey this evening. Thanking yourself for showing up for yourself, for finding 90 minutes of time to invest in your well-being and your health. And very gently bringing your wings down to land back on the earth. Taking a deep breath in. Perhaps blinking your eyes softly a few times, maybe into the darkness of an eye mask or your hands. And gradually coming to land back where you started. So welcome back everybody. Thank you for journeying with me and with each other this evening. A few moments to nourish yourself, to be gentle with yourself. Often, if you've been on a particularly deep meditation, you may find that you feel particularly cold or particularly warm. You'll most certainly need a good swig of water or tea, so take a hold of that as soon as you can. Take a few really deep, nourishing breaths, deep into the belly, deep into the abdomen. Really feel your lungs expand and your ribcage expand to make room for the air. If you're working with oils, then perhaps dabbing your finger in the oils, taking it under your nose or the jawline, kind of like a smelling salt, just to re-ground yourself back into this realm, into this plane. If you have any Palo Santo, holy wood, it's derived from the Bassara graviolis tree, similar to frankincense. And you can just gently pass the wood through a flame until it catches light. Maybe just a touch, and then you'll blow the light out and let the heady incense pass through your aura, through your being, taking with it anything that's come up from your journey that you can now release. So remembering that the new moon is a time of beginnings, it's a time of opening the cycle turning a fresh page, changing the record. So taking a moment to maybe journal down anything that's come up for you. Often it's kind of like a dream. You find yourself overwhelmed with visions and colours and thoughts and ideas and plans, and you have to quickly scribble it all down. But you'll find that unlike a dream, this probably stays with you a little longer, and the sounds will take 3 to 4 days to work through your body. It's a process of pure physics and energetics. Your body will be adjusting to the sound waves, to the frequencies. We're all just sound and light at different compressions. Your body will be processing those frequencies that we've placed into it this evening for several days yet. So I want to thank you guys all for being here with me this evening on this Gemini new moon. I hope you've had a beautiful journey, whether it's your first time with me or your 100th time with me or with anybody else. Sound is an incredibly powerful tool. Even through the magic of cyberspace, it really is profound, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, and the experiences you have over the next few days. But thank you all so much for being here. Have a beautiful rest of Friday. Drink lots of water. Take it gently. Be kind to yourself. And yeah, go and get outside if you can. Put your feet in the ground and listen to the birds. It's magical out there tonight. Thank you all very much for being here. Namaste.